Hey there, my friends. Welcome to the Links to Messiah podcast, where we are passionate about teaching our children all about the connections between the Old and New Testament. I'm your host, Rachel Links Kushner, also known as the Chief Enthusiasm Officer of Links to Messiah. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today. Come along and learn how your family and children can grow in their faith as you discover the beautiful links that God reveals throughout Scripture about the history of His people and His Son Jesus, our Messiah.
Yes, we will. This is such a fun time for me. I'm excited to have my new Instagram friend on my podcast. So we have, and what's funny, Johanna, I was like, before I hopped on here, I was like, I don't even know how to say her name.
You did
How do
it
you
very
pronounce your name?
well. So Johanna is really good. Very
Johanna.
close.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what Johanna. Okay. So so we met through Instagram. It's so fun because I think it's like social media at its best. I have made some really sweet friends on social media, and it's been such a lovely, pleasant surprise because you hear so much negativity about social media, and there's all that out there, of course. But to be able to connect with you and your family has been really such a delight for me, and it's been wonderful to get like a real pulse of what's happening in Israel. And so you've
Wonderful.
provided a lot of information in that regard. So tell us, Johanna, just tell us a bit about yourself, where you live, your family. Just give us the basics.
Sure. So I'm originally from Sweden,
Mm.
and I'm very much of a third culture child. When I was 12, my family moved to the States. Third culture child means you're not local anywhere. You don't really
Oh,
have a
thank you. I
culture
was like,
of your
I don't know
own.
what that means.
Yeah.
Got you. So
You
you
don't
don't
have a
really
culture of your own. Yeah.
interesting. So you're born in Sweden. You were 12 and you moved to the States?
Yes. And then 5 years later, we moved to Israel.
Oh, wow.
And throughout all of that time, my whole childhood,
Mhm.
we also traveled a lot and saw lots of
Okay.
places and had a lot of
Okay.
international exposure to different people. My parents pastored in Sweden. And so lots of speakers and missionaries and all kinds of interesting people would
Yes.
come through our home. So,
Wow.
yeah.
17 and you're moving to Israel. Did you
Yes.
speak Hebrew
I had learned some
or Arabic?
basics. No Arabic, but I had learned some basics. And I went to Ulpan, it's called. So that's like crash course for new immigrants in Hebrew.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so I did that when we first came here. And
Okay.
then towards the end of my first semester of Ulpan, I actually had gotten to know my husband, and I was very distracted. We were,
That's where you
yeah.
met?
No,
Oh, so oh,
he
okay.
he was here, and we got to know each other through mutual friends and family.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was very distracted and didn't do very well in Ulpan,
You were
which
more
was,
interested in the boy, not the
yeah, which
language. Yeah,
very
you're
different for
17,
me.
so
It was very different for me because I always really liked my studies, and it was something I
mm.
really loved. And then here was the teacher setting me down like, what are you doing? You're not really studying. And I'm like, ooh, this is a whole new thing
Uh-oh.
for me.
That's funny.
But by
That's
the end
funny.
of that semester, God had spoken to us that we were supposed to be married. So we were
Married.
engaged at
Mm.
17 and got married by
Really?
19. Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
we weren't messing around.
Yeah,
God
you weren't.
really
But
spoke to us, and He really was the one that brought us together. So I was
that's
distracted.
cool. Yes, that's funny. Okay, so just back up for a second. Explain to me why. So your parents are pastoring a church, yes, in Sweden, correct?
Yes.
So
So
what was the moving around about?
when they were no longer pastoring, we came to the States
Oh,
actually for my dad to translate a book into Swedish from English for a friend who lived in the States. And yeah, the man was from the States, and he asked my dad to translate the book. So
To translate.
we sort of relocated for what we thought would be a temporary time, 3-month tourist visa sort of thing. But my dad started teaching on prayer, and he has the School of Prayer, it's called, and so many people were asking him to share this School of Prayer that he was teaching, and he ended up traveling full time after he finished translating the book, teaching on prayer and raising up 24-hour prayer ministries for different congregations all throughout, mostly Mississippi and Alabama, but throughout the southern states. Yes. And it was amazing because right as our 3 months were over, God just did a miracle, and we ended up with a 5-year visa to stay in the US, which is unheard
Pretty
of, really.
unusual.
Yes, it
Yes,
was
I'm
very
like,
unusual. We were up in
yes, okay.
Canada. I remember it was very cold. It was December, and we were in Canada, and we were at the US Embassy on the other side of the border. And God just did a miracle and opened up the doors. And it was like to the day when that visa ended was when we ended up moving to Israel. So it was just very amazing. Yeah. And so as the years went on, those 5 years that we were in the States, he taught on prayer, but also more and more about Israel and things like that. So that was my dad. And then it was a congregation here in Israel that wanted him to come and start a 24-hour prayer in their congregation. So that's how we ended up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so neat. So you came as a teenager, ended
Yes.
up meeting your husband,
Yes.
got married so you were married at 19.
That's right.
You were
Yeah.
you were a young bride. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. I have a gazillion questions about your background, but what I do want to focus on and jump into is this is an unusual podcast episode in that normally let's talk about your children and why it's important to teach our children the Jewish roots of our faith. But I'm taking a little detour from that because you are in Israel and things are obviously the whole world is focused on Israel right now, and better not forget what's going on over there. And so I do want to ask you, I think our audience would be very interested in hearing what life is like for you. You are living in a country that is in active war.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the fears, the stress, so many things. So I want to ask you, like, what was life like on October 6th versus October 7th when Hamas came in and attacked?
Yeah. So I can even back up a little bit and say that throughout the years of living here and being married to my husband, who served as a young soldier in the IDF when we were married, and through the intifadas and the First Lebanon War and different things like that, we are used to flare-ups, as people might term it, where there's extra rockets.
Because there's always rockets.
Yes, or like the knife intifada that happened a few years ago, where we lost friends who decided to move out of the country because it was just too scary.
Wow.
Things like that. So it's not normal to be living under this level of threat already. But it is normal for us, if that makes sense.
I understand. It makes sense. So is what you're saying. So there were always rockets happening.
Yes.
But okay, so explain to us the change and how it feels different.
We had been running to shelter about once or twice a year up until this point. The siren would go, we would go to shelter. And then that Shabbat morning, I woke up slowly to my brain was thinking, oh, because we live in close proximity to my brother and his family, and their little ones are up early and running, and boom, the door's shut, boom, and the house kind of rattles. But it was like my brain was saying, there's something missing. I'm not hearing the little footsteps. I'm just hearing booms. I'm just hearing shaking walls and windows.
How
And
terrifying.
so
Processing.
slowly, before I was even fully awake, I'm like, there's something different about this sound. This isn't just doors shutting. And because we have some pretty broken doors on this property, and you have to really give them a go before it was like, no, there's something different about this sound. And by the time I was fully awake, I just shook my husband and said, wake up, there's something going on. It's a crazy amount of booms and rattlings, and the house is really shaking. He immediately grabbed his phone, because normally we're not on the phone on Shabbat, but he has a special message group with his army unit, and it was just lit up, hundreds of messages. And he jumped right out of bed and he said, they're telling us to pack. I got to go. So he immediately
Right then and there.
Yes. And then there was Sophia, my sister-in-law, at the door, and we had a guest staying with us from Portugal at the time. And our guest room is also the bomb shelter. So Sophia and my brother had gone down and said to him, we may all need to invade your space if the siren goes over our community. And it wasn't very many minutes before the sirens, started blaring. And my husband ran up and grabbed two of the children. I think one of them was already downstairs, and I grabbed him, and we just ran downstairs to the shelter. And within seconds, you hear the blasts somewhere nearby overhead.
You did?
Oh, yes. So you hear boom, and then you have to wait for 10 more minutes.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
They tell you for 10 minutes because there's shrapnel and things that could still be falling. Yeah. Wow. So they tell you, wait for the siren, wait for the blast, and then wait 10 more minutes. And so what is going on? And by now, I'm hearing my husband and my brother talking. They're looking at their phones, and they're like, there's some kind of party that's been attacked in the south. There's something going on.
You had that information already?
Yeah, it was starting to trickle in. Yes.
Wow.
And they're saying they've attacked a party. And then we saw pictures of people having been shot and at bus stops and in some shelters. And these are the things that we didn't want to talk about in front of the children. So slowly throughout the day, I'd be trying to ask my brother to the side, like, what's going on? Because it wasn't very long before my husband said goodbye, and he was gone. Wow. So after the first 10 minutes, I don't think even 10 minutes passed before another siren and another one. And then we'd come up, and we were like, we had planned this breakfast with this big Shabbat breakfast because it was Simchat Torah. So we had planned a really festive brunch with several different flavors of croissants and toast and bread and a big cheese spread and all this juice and all these fancy things that we had bought. And so we were like, let's go up and have our breakfast and settle the children a little bit. But we'd just come up, and then there would be another siren. So back down. So by the time we realized we weren't even going to have time to get dressed between sirens, we were just bringing clothes down, and then we brought all the food down, and we're just passing boxes of croissants and rolls around and trying to, like, who's hungry. It was very strange, I have to say, the reality of what was going on. And then to realize that there had been so many breaches at the border, and so many the police base, the stations and the army bases in the south had been completely invaded, and so many soldiers and police and first responders had been killed. It was just like, that did not all come in the first day. We understood that more and more the next day and the next day. I think my husband knew more because he was with his unit, and they're getting the information more. So he was very worried about us. And he said, if they come,
leaving you.
He said,
that must have been impossible.
it was very difficult for him. And he said,
Yes.
if I want everyone to have their shoes on, and if there's
Mm.
people coming to this community, you need to get in the car, drive to the end of the street, park it like it's someone's car, so they don't think that you ran off into the woods, like they can't see your car. Make it like it belongs to someone's house, and then just go in the woods and hide. He was giving
Really?
us all these instructions as he was leaving, because I think he had
Oh my
enough
word.
information.
He
And
knew.
yes, so he knew, and he was giving us instructions of how to deal with
Mm.
if our community was overrun
Attacked.
like they were in the
Oh my
south of us. That was crazy. And the
Johanna,
first
I have
couple of
goosebumps
nights,
all
yeah,
over my arms thinking about how terrified I would be. Your husband's
it
giving you
was
these crazy
crazy.
instructions that are like out of a movie.
It
Like,
was
that's not
crazy.
real.
Yeah.
Right, that doesn't seem real.
Yeah, it was like there are no
Oh,
guarantees. When we started getting the news of what was
yeah.
happening, it just
Mhm.
felt okay, but this sounds out of touch with reality, but there are no guarantees because this is what's happening to people. And yeah, that first night we slept with shoes on, clothes on, everything. And we had,
In your
you
bed
know,
with your shoes
yes, yes.
because you had to be ready.
And all the kids in bed with me and everything. And then
Oh,
yes, so they weren't allowed to go down to the lower yard. Like everyone had to be very near the shelter, very near
of
us, very near
course.
the vehicles. So we had
Right.
blankets and things in the
Wow.
vehicles as well. Hmm.
Can you just go back for just a second? So, I've never experienced what you're describing, never ever. And I don't think most of the people listening have. What is a bomb shelter? Okay, what does it look like? How do you get there? How are you safe in there? It's obviously it's lower, it's below your home, isn't
I'm
it?
not sure which year Israel enacted the law that every home, every private home, needs to have a protected room.
Oh,
So
I
the
didn't know
homes
that.
who didn't have and that were in very exposed areas, they would go in and build a shelter room in the homes. They can be above ground. If
Oh, they
they're,
can be.
yeah, they could be like on the first floor usually, or if
Oh,
there's a basement, then that's even better. But
ideal,
they
right.
have very thick walls. They have big iron, like shutter over the windows, the big iron door, and the walls are
Mm,
some kind of heavy duty concrete that is shrapnel safe and
wow.
blast safe and
Right.
everything.
My
That's
word.
what it is. Most people use it as one of the rooms of their house, but that's where
Like
you
you do
go.
as your guest room, right?
But in another house that we've lived in, it was one of the bedrooms.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, so
So when you go in there, so what does your shelter look like? Obviously, it's a bedroom, right?
it
So is
is,
there a bathroom down there? Like, how do the practical things of life? Is there
yeah,
a kitchen? How do you?
no, so it's
Okay,
just a room.
it's
And
literally just a room.
yes, so I think the second or the third day of after October 7th, the government did say that they wanted everyone to purchase supplies to be able to stay in their shelters for 3 days at least.
Really?
Yeah, they did. So that means water and
Hmm.
food, dry goods, long lasting milk and things, anything you could
Mm,
think of that would
sure,
help
that you
you
need.
get along for 3 days. Yeah, so we're blessed because right outside of our shelter is the bathroom. So in
Oh, good.
between sirens, we
You
could
could
go. But
run.
if we
Yeah.
were in a situation like a lot of the communities of the South were, where they had to hold the doors shut for a day, for 20 hours. I don't know. There's so many different stories that we're hearing where they were just
Mm.
pulling with all their might, keeping the doors shut to protect themselves from people who are trying to break in. Of course, you're not going to go out and go to the bathroom.
The doors shut.
They were. Some of those people, they just set the house on fire and then they were burned to death in their shelters.
Yes,
I'm sure you've
that's
heard,
right.
but
I did read that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so many
Oh,
of them, these are doors that are meant to be to protect you from a blast, not from a terrorist invasion. So
right.
they don't have necessarily
Mm,
locks like that. So they
right.
were grabbing onto the handles and holding the doors shut, trying to keep the bad guys out. And
Right.
yeah,
Bad guys.
Yeah,
I'm smirking when I say, because you said the bad guys, but it's like when you're talking to your children, that's what you have to say, I would
it
imagine,
is.
right?
Yeah,
You're talking about the bad
exactly.
guys.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think would surprise most people to learn, like, about your everyday life? Because now it's like we're 2 months in. I
Hmm.
can't believe it's been 2 months, right? It's been about 60 days, I think.
Yeah, it is October 7th, and the first
Yeah,
night of Hanukkah
November.
was December 7th.
That's
So, yeah.
right. I do want to talk to you about Hanukkah too. But so, like, what does everyday life look like for you? And what do you think people would be surprised about?
I think that in so many ways, we've had to find a new normal, which is super off, but it's still a new routine.
Mm,
Many families, of course, the husbands are at war, so they're not together.
that is your
That
situation,
is our situation. Yeah.
right?
He has been able to have leave from time to come home to visit, which is amazing. It's wonderful.
Oh,
The
I've seen
perks,
some of the photographs that you have posted, or somebody's posted. They are so sweet, just precious moments that
yes,
you're capturing.
yes. The perks of living in the war zone is that when there's a few hours off, you get to be together.
You get to see them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
A perk of living in a war zone. Oh.
Yes, the war isn't on the other
Hmm.
side of the world where he would be gone for months, but it's
Right. Right.
right here.
Yeah. A few
So,
miles away or whatever.
yeah, now it's been about a month since we've had sirens in our area and rocket attacks. We
Right
are
in your neighborhood.
right. So we've not, it's been quiet here for some time, although
Mm.
we do see them because if you have the alert app on your phone, I'm sure that you see they're sending a lot of rockets over the Tel Aviv area and
Hmm.
Ashdod,
Hmm.
Ashkelon, all the coastal area is
Yeah.
completely under bombardment basically daily. And we can see all those from our house. We can
You
hear them.
can.
Yes.
Oh
We can
man.
hear all the shelling and the IDF artillery in Gaza. Today, as throughout the day, I hear goom, 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 like these deep rumbling explosions in the background noise all the time.
All the time you're hearing that. So you're hearing that, but it's not a siren saying that it's coming near you,
No,
but you can
this,
hear
yes,
the
so that's right. So we hear the blast of the IDF artillery in Gaza, and then we hear
yes.
and see the rocket
Stuff
fire
in
that's
Tel
going
Aviv.
over the coastal cities and
Okay,
the
gotcha.
Iron Dome interceptions.
Mm.
And even though it's
Wow.
been several weeks since we've had a siren over our community, just
Hmm.
yesterday, this something that might be surprising to hear, but
Yeah.
it's Shabbat. And so a lot of people
Hmm.
who are not observant, they love to go out with four-wheelers and motorcycles. And we live in the mountains where that's like huge hobby. But those
Gotcha.
engines revving through the trails in the woods, every
Uh-huh.
time my little 4-year-old, he'll say, "Is that a siren?" Because it sounds very similar.
Oh.
The like of those engines going
Like starting up
revving,
the
yeah, and you
siren
think it's
sound.
going to be the
Yes.
siren. Still, he says that something that sounds like a
Oh.
siren. My 7-year-old, he's, oh, that was crazy. My heart feels so crazy right now. It's beating so fast. Even though in our minds, we
Wow.
know we feel pretty
Mm.
peaceful right now. The Home
Mm.
Front Command has cleared our area for green. It's not high
Okay.
alert area, which is so
Okay.
wonderful.
That.
So our minds feel pretty at ease, but it's like this
Mm.
trauma that stays in your body somehow. And when you hear
Yes.
something that
Yes.
sounds like something, is your body just responds, whether you mean to or
Absolutely.
not,
Right.
even the children. So that's something.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing actually that your 7-year-old can articulate like what's going on in his body. He says my heart's beating really fast.
Mm-hmm.
He's 7?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. He is
Mm-hmm.
really in touch. That's and can
Yeah.
articulate it. That's
It
pretty
it was
cool.
something on someone's phone that just sounded very similar, and he's, whoa, that was crazy. I just heard that and my heart just started
And my
going
heart.
so
Yeah.
fast. And so
Oh.
they will hear motorcycles even now, or engines or something, and they all come
And they
running and
because
just
they have
run
a
to the
different response
shelter.
to it. Yeah, because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
know.
Mhm.
They're trained. They
Mhm.
know what to do. Wow. Yes, I know you're a homeschooler. So
Mhm.
tell me about what does your day look like? What is a typical day?
I would say this year has been very different because here in Israel the school year begins and then we go straight into the holidays with Rosh
Yeah, right.
Hashanah and Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Trumpets, and everything. And then
Hmm.
was the end of Sukkot, and then the war began. So we didn't
Right.
really have a chance to get this year going to a very
Mm,
normal
routine
school
kind of
routine.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I am thankful that I've got some of my kids' cousins with me as well. So we're all schooling together. And when you're responsible for other people's children, you don't just take days off for
It
no
feels a little
reason.
differently.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, here we go. We get together and have a family time of
Okay.
worship and prayer with everyone, the
Uh-huh.
grandma, grandpa, everybody. And
That's so
then
nice.
we split up for some chore time and do chores and everything like that.
Hmm.
And then we'll gather up for school. And I'd
Hmm.
say school has been limping along a little bit, but I feel,
To be expected.
yeah, I feel like I'm ready now. It's been 2 months, and I do really
Mm,
feel like there was a shift at this 2 month mark, some sort of emergency mode all the time. I'm ready to, okay, let's see what our capabilities are. Let's get some
okay.
better sleep. Let's figure out what we can do
Mm,
and really get into, yeah, the normal life.
yeah. So
And
your nervous system has settled down a little bit.
yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
feel like he's
Mm,
fine and he gets to come home for leave and we're going
yeah.
to make this work. And I feel like, yeah, this 2 month mark really for me has brought me new energy and new peace
Mm,
and a new ability to feel like some of the things that I wasn't really able to have enough presence of mind to
sure.
focus in on with schooling and our
Yeah.
scheduling. We just did the bare minimum with the major subjects.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
yeah, time to plan some of those nature days and to bring out some of those
Okay.
composer studies and really do the
Yeah.
extra
Nice.
things and some
Hmm.
outings and
Hmm.
stuff. I feel like, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel confident that we can go in the woods where there are no shelters nearby and we could do some
And be
stuff.
okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what it feels like right now and how it's been up until now has been a little bit more
I'm
limited.
glad to hear that because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm glad to hear that because we spoke live, I think on Instagram. Did we
And it
do an
was
Instagram
not like
live?
that. Yeah, we
It
did.
was not like that.
That's
Johanna,
right.
you are in a very different mental state,
For
right?
sure.
Like yeah, there has definitely been a shift. Praise God for that because
Yes.
you can't live at that elevated
No.
when your nervous system
No.
is like that, you can't sustain that long term.
That's right.
So you're
Yeah.
easing into it and now transitioning. Okay, got to sort
Let's
of get back
face
to
life.
normal
Yeah.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever that
Yeah.
means.
I spoke with friends who realized I'm not eating those first couple of weeks. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
I'm feeding
sure.
my children, but I'm not actually eating
Right.
anything.
I'm eating
I'm
off
not
their plate as I
sleeping.
clean up.
Yeah, I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm not eating. This has got to
Mm,
shift. And so at some point, it got to where it was like, okay, we need to make sure we know we're putting food in our bodies, we're drinking some water.
yes.
And so, yeah,
Back
now
to the
we've come
basics.
along.
Hmm.
It's come
Yeah.
a long way since then. So thank God.
Yeah. I'm really.
Hey friends, I am interrupting this podcast for just a quick moment. I wanted to let you know that we have a lot of free resources available for you over at linkstomessiah.com. If you click on the resources tab, you're going to find a lot of goodies. We have a blog and we have a story time where I love to read some wonderful books out loud for your children. And we always have seasonal free activities. So head on over over to linkstomessiah.com. You can check out all the goodies. You can also easily hop over there by looking at the show notes. And now, back to the Links to Messiah podcast.
Glad to hear it. Tell me about Hanukkah. How are you guys celebrating Hanukkah? Is it weird that you're doing it without your husband?
It's super weird, and it's like clouded in grief, I would say. It's hard. It feels like an
Yes.
act of resistance against the darkness that is pressing in so much.
Oh, that's so well said. Ooh.
Yeah. So I feel like it's such a grace to have been with children throughout this whole thing, because you don't let yourself just go into a very dark place when you're around children, because they don't need that. And same with Hanukkah. And we also, it was very difficult because a really dear friend of ours that started going her journey with cancer just in the past half year,
Oh no.
things really took a downward turn right at the beginning of the war, and she passed on the first day of Hanukkah. And so there was a funeral, and tomorrow we're going to the
Johanna, I'm so
Shiva,
sorry.
to be with her family a little bit tomorrow. And so it was a very difficult first day of Hanukkah. Yeah. And she was a very special woman. She had led her children in such a godly way. She's not very old. She's in her 60s. And I think we have the Daily Bible Reading podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just listened to Mom's. She recorded today's episode, today's readings, and I just listened to it earlier. And she mentioned our friend that passed. And she said, I just want to give an encouragement, because she was on the live memorial service, the Zoom live memorial service for her. And she had 8 children, I think 8. Yeah.
Wow.
And they're all grown now, and many of them have several children of their own. And they all just testified to this woman's character, the way she raised them, the way she taught them to seek the Lord and to read their Bibles, the way she taught them about Israel and brought them to this place.
Beautiful.
And to serve others. And so
what a legacy she's left.
Mom just said, listen, this meant the world to them. She was there for them all times of day or night.
Matters.
She prayed for them. She stayed tight with the Lord, and it matters. And don't give up hope, and don't give up the good fight of raising your children even through difficult times.
What a great word.
That's really what has been on my mind this Hanukkah as well, is that this woman was such a light, and she was so sweet. I met her the first time when my oldest Shia was just learning to walk, 1 year old.
Oh,
we
wow.
spent
So you've known her a long time.
we spent a few months out in the mountains of Samaria with them, harvesting grapes and just being with them. And she just took me under her wing and encouraged me and kept talking about how special Shia was. And then I saw her children, the way she was homeschooling them and raising them and everything. And she's been there for every one of my children's, their bris milas and their birthdays and all their special events. And so she's a big encouragement in our family and a dear friend. And
Sure.
yeah,
special woman. It's a hard loss, but it's good that you said something about when you're with kids, you can't go down or be down or something. I forget exactly how you worded it. And I thought to myself, you can. You absolutely can. But you decided otherwise.
That's
right. And so maybe your friend was a good example of that for you. That it's like in the hard times, especially when you got little ones, you do have to step up. And it's really incredibly hard to do that in your situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
War is not pretty, and it's not good for children. So you have to try to give them a peace and just
give them a peace. War is not good for children. No, it's not. Yeah. So it's been a weird Hanukkah with war, your husband, your friend's lot. Yeah. All those things combined.
Yeah.
Tell me how you see Jesus in the midst of all of this craziness happening around you.
I'm so thankful that he is always with us, and he's no stranger to sorrow and suffering. And these are his people, of his brothers, and even the least of them that was, yeah, the ones that were taken hostage. I think of those babies, and I think of what he said. If someone would cause one of the least of these to stumble, it would be better for a millstone to be tied around their neck and cast into the sea. And I think what these people did with no mercy and such cruelty to the little ones, and what sort of, and how it talks about heaven is holding him back. And when he comes, he's going to destroy evil with just the words coming out of his mouth like a sword. And the breath from his mouth will be destroying them. And so I pray that that righteous zeal will really awaken in his people now.
Yes.
And I pray that he would reveal himself to many throughout this time, especially even those in Gaza, who, that is a very dark place. There, if you've ever heard of Unreached People Group, this is a place that if you go in and you're not Hamas supporter, you most likely will not come out with your life in tow. And that is from the past, since 2006, when Hamas gained power in Gaza. They're very cruel of ISIS, and it's the same. It is extremely dark. And we just pray that some people would have maybe the courage to go and reach them. It would be by life or by death for sure. But we've heard stories of Yeshua revealing himself to people there. I don't know if it's verifiable, but I pray that it is true. So,
that is true. Yeah. I wanted to ask you too, what is the best way to be praying? Of course, we pray for the people that are living there, no matter what they believe. Right. We pray for those people and for their hearts to have a change and have an inclination toward the Lord. But like for you and for your family, what is the best way to pray for you? I pray for your kids when I
have
think
to
about
share.
you guys all the time.
I have to share about you, because the special thing that you do for the children is, it's so special.
Oh, the reading. Yeah.
Yes, and the coloring parties.
Yeah.
My family, my sister and her husband from the States, they came and visited us during the war, because my family's a little bit unusual. So when there's war, they get a ticket and they fly.
Let's go.
Yes.
That's funny.
So yeah, my brother-in-law came twice. He came right away at the beginning when we just needed extra help. And then he came back for...
That's amazing.
We'd actually had a planned family trip for all of them. And my sister and her husband and their daughters came, both daughters. And I think the first time my brother-in-law was in the kitchen watching as you were doing a coloring party, and he was just he was in tears.
Fun.
He was so touched. He's like, this lady, it just rocked my heart. Yes. And he's like, I can't believe the sweetness of what she's giving to these children. And and then my niece, she came later, it was one of the story times. And she was just behind the kitchen island, just bawling. This lady is so sweet. Here, we're in the middle of a war, and she's doing this for these children. And they just really were so touched by your obedience and the light and love and shalom that you brought to the kids.
Bringing shalom to your home at 7 p.m. Israeli time. I really appreciate that. Like, I take that in. I thank you for those kind words. It's so funny. Not funny. It's fascinating how God works, right? Because here I thought, when this war broke out, I was trying to figure out, what can I do? Lord, what can I do? Like, I want to do something. Yes, I can pray. Yes, I can send money to reputable organizations and all of that. But like, I felt like I needed something hands-on to do. And he just whispered this little idea into my ear and said, just do it until I tell you to stop. And we started with that Jesus Storybook Bible, reading one little story a day. And here I thought, this is great. This is my way to contribute. It has been life giving to my soul in ways that I can't
Oh,
even explain. It's
good.
just been incredible that I didn't expect. Here I thought, oh, I'm giving something, but I'm receiving so much more than I can express.
Oh
So
my
it's cool how
goodness.
God does stuff like that.
My children love it, and if our bedtime doesn't work around the 7, then we always watch the recorded video, and they're like, "Can we do
I
another
love
one
it.
and
Awesome.
another one?"
And another one, and
So
another
they
one.
love it.
And you said something about your daughter, that your friend who passed away said there's something special about her. And what's really interesting is I had to go back and watch that Instagram live because do you remember I was having trouble and I
Mhm.
couldn't see all the families that were
Mhm.
on? I don't know
Yeah.
what was happening. So I went back to watch it and I could see Shia. She was off to the side, but she was participating completely. But she, every time I would talk, she would look up over at the camera. Like she'd be working and then she'd look over at me. And I could tell I was like, she is into this. I'm like, she's going to be leading a story time one day.
Yes, she's
She's a
something.
sweet girl. You could tell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. So I want to ask you a little bit too, just a minute, and then we'll wrap up. But I wanted to ask about your husband. What are you able to share about his unit and how they're fighting Hamas, and what does that look like of what you
um,
can share?
sure. His unit is in the south by Gaza, and they go in and do missions in Gaza, which was also very hard for me to wrap my mind around at the beginning
Oh,
because
of course.
as a young soldier, he was already in Gaza before the pullout in 2005, before Israel
Oh,
pulled up
oh, he
in.
was.
Yes. So he had been stationed in Gaza before. He had lost many friends in Gaza before. And
Oh,
yes, so when Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005 and gave it over to the Palestinians completely, and then there was an election
yes,
and they elected in Hamas.
Hamas.
Now we're going back in there, and I don't know what to
Hmm.
expect. I know there's been so much tunnels. I know Gaza was always famous for all the booby traps and the dangerous,
Hmm.
very close quarter combat and things. So that first week, my mind was just like, what is happening? And so on. And so that's also now they have like much more of a steady rotation, and
Routine
yes, and we have ways of communicating that I know when he can talk to me and when he can't. Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so there are times when I won't hear from him for a few days, and then it's
Mm.
more difficult, and then
Oh, of course,
yeah.
because it's the unknown.
Yeah,
Mm.
there's not too much I can say, but
Okay, that's
there's
fine.
just season days or 2 3 days or whatever where
Yeah.
I won't be able to hear anything. And then
Mm.
there's some missions that are shorter, and
So
we
is he
just
able to talk to the kids as well?
every so often they're very busy.
Mm.
But
Yeah, of
for
course.
instance, tonight he did text me and say, "Can I say goodnight to the kids?" So
Oh,
but
fun.
that was the first time since the first night of Hanukkah that they were able to talk to him. So it's not very much or very
Oh,
often.
okay.
Yeah.
And when he comes home, how long is he usually there for? A day?
Sometimes it was a day, sometimes it's 48 hours.
Yeah,
He's been sick a
depends.
lot, so he got an
Oh,
extra day to try to get recovered. So the last time he was
sweet.
home, he actually had 3 days, which was wonderful.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he
Yeah.
needed some sleep and good food and good cuddles and
Yeah. You can pray for the men because their
yeah.
sickness and stomach flus and things like that
Mm,
doesn't mean you get to take a break when there's a war. So
right.
one of the men in his team had infections in his lungs,
Oh
and
no.
several have been down with stomach flu, and it just seems to be
Mm.
cycling back the whole time, like they're always sick.
Oh
So
gosh.
please pray for
Yeah.
them to be strong and
Add
healthy.
okay. I'm writing it down. I'm
Thank
writing
you.
it down.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, I pray for you and your children, Sophia, her children, and your
Yes.
parents. Are there
Mm-hmm.
with you in the same
Yeah. Same.
compound? I don't know what
Yeah.
you call
Same
it. I don't know
property.
what to call it.
Same
Property.
property. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're here too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, here's the last thing. It's not a question. It's just I'm going to tell you something. So I sent your husband a message on Instagram. I don't know him at all except from Instagram. And I just said, I'm going to be chatting with your wife. And I wanted to know, is there anything that you would like to tell her? And so this is what he said. I wrote it down on my little. He says, tell her you are the best homeschool mom in all of Israel. And I'm so proud of you. That's his message.
That's so sweet.
Very sweet. Of all the
That's
things
so
to say,
sweet.
I was like, how kind and encouraging to
Yes.
you, to validate you as a mother, as a
Mm.
homeschool mom, and that he's
Thank
very
you.
sweet.
Thank you, Rachel. And that was an amazing thought that you had to ask him that. That was really special and sweet.
Yeah, I thought,
Thank you.
why not? I was like, I don't know if he's going to respond. I don't know what his schedule looks like. I thought, I'll throw it out there.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah, we'll see
sure.
if he responds. Yeah. This has been amazing to talk with you and to just hear the real of what's happening in Israel. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I love that we have become friends through Instagram. I just think it's wild. And I can't wait to one day I will meet you face to face. I can't wait to hug you and play with your kids and read to your kids like live, sitting on my lap and next to me on the couch reading.
Yes.
But for now, we'll continue on Instagram.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I so much appreciate you as well. And you're a great blessing to our family.
Right back at you, Johanna. All right. It's late for you. You need to go to bed. You need to get some sleep, girl.
I'm good. We're before 10 o'clock still, so it's good.
Okay, good. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. We'll keep praying for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. Bye.
Thank you for being a part of the Links to Messiah podcast family. Your support means the world to us, and your feedback and engagement keep us going strong. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends and family. Let's continue growing this incredible community together. Until next week, keep reading the Bible to your children, keep their curiosity burning, and keep coming back for more tips to anchor your child's faith to Jesus, our Messiah. This is your host, Rachel Lynx Kushner, signing off with a big smile and a heart full of gratitude.